Welcome to the third week of the Ranch Dallas Sports Podcast. My name is Tex. This is my buddy James, and we're going to be going over everything that happened in Dallas sports from the past week. We're going to start off with baseball in the MLB. It's coming to a close in the MLB season, but it's not over yet. The Texas Rangers are fighting their way back in, only a half game out of the AL West, coming off of a series win versus the Red Sox and then getting swept the week before by the Guardians. This was a must-win series. Heading back home to play the Mariners. They got 3 series left. It's a tight race right now, and they're starting to play really well. 1-15-5 last night, and if they continue this hot streak, especially with their players coming back healthy, they could make a push in the playoffs to go deep.
I think since we last talked, I watched them sweep the Blue Jays and then get swept by the Guardians, which I think is really funny. I guess the Dallas sports way is, I know the joke about the Cowboys is beat up on bad teams, but honestly, the real Dallas sports way is to play well against good teams and then awful against bad teams. So I think that was rather amusing. They just got finished beating the snot out of the Red Sox. So that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, huge win with 3 series left. They only have 10 games left, 7 of them being against Seattle, who is also fighting for a spot in the playoffs. I don't know what their magic number is to clinch a playoff spot, but I mean, their run differential's still high. They're on a win streak. They're 6-4 in their last 10. I mean, they're looking primed to win this wild card and potentially win the AL West. We were talking earlier about kind of the nosedive that they took from the All-Star break, and it kind of has that feeling that they're starting to pick back up, which I think honestly might be for the best. Taking that nosedive early on in the season or earlier in the season, and then getting back hot right before the playoffs to take you into the playoffs, performing well, has really worked in the past for a lot of other teams. Phillies a couple years ago, the Giants in 2010. A lot of teams they get hot right at the end of the season, and that carries them on. And we could see some major upsets. Maybe them beating Houston in the playoffs. Maybe them beating Baltimore in the playoffs. Who knows? But it seems really interesting with their players coming back that this team could look like pre-All-Star break Texas Rangers.
And I. My concern is what it has been, is if their pitching staff can, hold the line. Max Scherzer, I know, is kind of up and down, but him being out for the season is right. That happened, right?
Yeah, yep. He is out for the season. Looking back on it, terrible trade for the Texas Rangers, giving up a huge prospect. Now, granted, shortstop is filled. Second is filled. You could argue that center field might be filled with roster positions. Who knows? Leardy Tevez has actually been pretty good. Adolis Garcia, obviously good and right. And then Robbie Grossman and Travis Janikowski in left field have been really good players, surprising players. But second and short, they're filled. They're not going to be moving anytime soon. Maybe Marcus Semien would go to DH, but I don't see that happening. He still looks very like his young prime self. But yeah, their pitching has been kind of the reason for their nosedive. Obviously, injuries to Jonah Heim and Josh Jung, kind of accelerated that downhill climb. But the pitching's starting to bring it back up. Offense as well is starting to get hot, but the games they lost to the Guardians, they lost 12-3. That's an awful loss. But then they lost 2-1. That's a pretty fine loss. Your offense should score more than 2 runs. 9-2. That one hurts as well. But the game they lost against the Red Sox was 4-2. That's a very winnable game, 4-2. Obviously, you prefer to get less than 3 runs. But their pitching, besides Aroldis Chapman, because Aroldis Chapman is the worst clutch pitcher I've ever seen as a Yankee fan. Terrible. I swear if I see the Rangers put him in against the Astros in the playoffs, you might as well just call the series right there, because they're hitting a grand slam. They're hitting a 5-run home run against Chapman, and that's not even possible. But
Getting
the
fans from the stand to run out of there.
yeah, get some interference call or whatever like 4 times. But yeah, the pitching, it looks like it's starting to maybe get back to its original self. Dan Dunning is kind of starting to get back into his all-star self. Nathan Eovaldi's still, performing healthy and kind of just riding the wave. He's not looking like the Cy Young candidate. I think Garrett Cole's pretty much taken that award right now. But still, a 3.05 ERA over the 2023 season is a great ERA with a 1.1 WHIP. This team, as long as they don't rely too heavily on their pitching, like you said, in the playoffs, can be a dominant force. If they go out there and they strike fast and they strike first and they strike often, they're going to win games. I know they say pitching wins championships. I think this team is going to have to score at least 6 runs every game in the playoffs to win, because their bullpen is not strong at all. And you said you watched the one of the games. Was that versus the Guardians or was that the Red Sox?
It was one of the Guardians games.
So, did you watch the high scoring games or that 2-1 loss?
It was that 2-1 one, and I was drinking a lot. So,
Yeah.
What?
I mean, that game was kind of rough in itself. They were winning up until the 8th inning, and then they gave up a 2-run. I believe it was a home run, or maybe it was just an RBI. Yeah, it was a 2-out single to score the tying run in the 8th inning. That one hurts. Dan Dunning gives you 5 innings with shutout baseball. Martin Perez comes in for an inning and 2 thirds, and again shutout. And then Will Smith comes in and just absolutely blows it. Leclerc actually looks good. I was surprised. I've been really high on Jose Leclerc, but he seems to always he seems kind of like a Chapman, where he doesn't have great control anymore, and he's given up a lot of home runs. But like I said before, if they get hot right before the playoffs, entering the playoffs, and they can force their bullpen not to have to hold down and be clutch, I think they can go far in this playoff. Will they? We'll find out in the next couple of weeks. But now moving on to college football. Not really that exciting of a week for college football. Last week we had Texas beating Alabama. This week they're playing. They played Wyoming, and it kind of looked scary at the beginning. Going, I believe it was 10-3 at halftime, or 7-10, excuse me, at halftime, and then going into the fourth quarter tied 10-10. I was really worried, especially knowing Steve Sarkisian and his history with second half games. He has not been good, especially in one score second half games. His record is not good, but they came out and they dominated. I mean, they ended up winning 31-10, and you might say, oh well, by the third quarter it was 10-10, but coming out in that fourth quarter, I think proved to everyone in the nation that this is not the same Texas team we've seen in the past. It has a couple of the same players, but they have a new culture around them that is focused on winning and getting the job done no matter what it takes. Were you able to watch any of the Wyoming game? I know it's kind of a out there game to watch compared to last week.
I saw a bit of the fourth quarter. I think the weird thing is there was a lot of teams that struggled with their opponents that they probably shouldn't have struggled with, because it wasn't just Texas. It wasn't just Texas struggling for most of the game. Number 10, Alabama, struggled with a bad USF team.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with Bama?
Yeah,
So,
hey, Bama dynasty is over.
But I mean, if Bama is maybe not that good anymore, if Bama is going to struggle with USF, unfortunately, I do think that's unfortunately one of those things where now, like retrospectively, you're going to look back and be like, well, was Texas beating them that impressive then?
I think one of the major differences was that it was in Alabama, it was in Tuscaloosa, and the team, had high expectations. Obviously, Alabama went to their opponent the last week, but it was kind of surprising to see Alabama go on the road to such a small school. But like you were saying, a lot of schools struggled. Number 1, Georgia, only winning by 10 points versus South Carolina. Granted, South Carolina is a good team. I mean, they upset Tennessee last year. Michigan held it down pretty easy against Bowling Green, 31-6. Florida State, only a 2-point win over Boston College, winning 31-29. That was a close one, and that's why Texas went up to number 3. I know I heard a lot of people saying that Texas pretty much didn't win their game either by expected margins. Florida State looked embarrassing in that fourth quarter, obviously giving up 13 points. And it was an interesting game to watch overall, but I'm glad that Texas went up to 3 because honestly, I could see them going up to 2. I don't see them going up to 1. I think that's as long as Georgia goes undefeated throughout the rest of the year, I think Georgia's going to be number 1 no matter what. Obviously, if they go undefeated completely, they're number 1. But I don't think we'll be able to make arguments about strength of schedule or anything like that, unfortunately. So we're going to have to hope for some kind of upset. Maybe Auburn upsets Georgia or something in the SEC championship allows Texas to get that number 1 spot and be the first time they ranked number 1 since 2008, which is crazy to me that it's been that long, pretty much my whole lifetime. Texas has not been the number 1 team in the nation. Or ranked wise. But
it's the good old days of Colt McCoy, right?
Good old days of Colt McCoy. Even before that with Vince Young. Colt McCoy was something else during that time. But speaking of a Texas school in college football, Texas State won 77-34 last week against Jackson State Tigers, and they scored 56 points in the first half. Absolutely crazy. In the second quarter, in a span of 3 minutes, they scored 3 touchdowns. They scored a touchdown a minute. And you would think like, oh, maybe there was, a lot of picks or fumbles. Both teams had 1 turnover each. This game was insane in terms of stat line and stat padding. I mean, Texas State's quarterback had 3 touchdowns through 251 yards. The running back had 133 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Like, is Texas State a sneaky school to maybe get ranked in the top 20?
No. So they played Jackson State.
I know it's Jackson State, but they did beat Baylor at the beginning of the season 42-31, and then they lost to UT San Antonio 20-30, and they don't have much in terms of their schedule because they are in the Sun Belt. But I mean, if they went out the Sun Belt, you could be looking at a team that kind of like UCF, I feel like, in a couple years ago where they were undefeated and they're starting to get some recognition. Same with Cincinnati. So maybe a couple years down the line, we're talking about Texas State, moving up into a Power 5 conference or becoming a top 20 team annually.
Consider this with that close loss to UTSA. Consider this: UTSA got that dog in them. Bark, 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 bark. Remember when they almost went undefeated a couple years ago?
Yeah. Granted, they're in the American Conference, so it's not too impressive.
Now they are. They were in Conference USA then.
Yeah, I think Conference USA got completely gutted. I know it's still around, but I know a lot of the teams from Conference USA moved to the American Conference, like UNT's in the American Conference. But there was another big match for UCF. They had a backup quarterback come in, and I'm gonna let you talk about the game because I know you watched it.
So yeah, UCF they looked good against Villanova, but I mean it was also like Villanova. But it was a shutout.
Still an
pretty
SEC
much
school.
Well, yeah, it was a shutout until pretty much the fourth quarter. Our backup Timmy McClain, he looked pretty good. 300 yards and 2 touchdowns is not bad at all. I think you definitely could have easily done more against them, but that's definitely good. I think the question is if he's going to be able to play like that again next week versus K-State, who did just lose in a big upset. But the question is will he be able to play like that against some better defenses? And if he can, there might be a little QB controversy in Orlando. But
yeah, I was gonna bring it up. If he has the hot hand and he beats Kansas State going into Baylor, who knows if Plumlee's coming back for that Baylor game, when he's coming back. I don't know if they've announced it yet. But if he plays like he did against Villanova against Kansas State, I mean, you can't take that away from the team. That is a good quarterback on a hot streak. and that might ruin the season if you move it around. So why not give it to the hot hand? UCF is 3-0. You might be looking at a Big 12 appearance for their first year in the Big 12. If they continue this, just go beat Oklahoma. That's the big one on their schedule.
So Oklahoma has dominated 3 weeks in a row, though, which is unfortunate because I hate Dylan Gabriel and I want him to lose every game because he abandoned us at UCF. But, no big deal.
Hey, Oklahoma last year dominated their first 3 games, and then Texas beat them 49-0 and put Oklahoma in their place. They're going to do it again this year. They're going to dominate them in the last Big 12 Red River rivalry. But you never know. Maybe it's a revenge game for UCF. Maybe they have some fire in them that they could put one over on Dylan Gabriel, get that revenge for abandoning them. But, I mean, it's an exciting season, especially for UCF fans. If you beat Kansas State, you beat Baylor. I know they're not ranked teams, and yeah, they had some unfortunate losses, but you might look at a top 25 consideration for UCF. Especially heading into that.
K-State was ranked.
They were ranked. Obviously, they're not anymore because of their loss. But I could definitely see the committee saying, hey, we're going to rank UCF if they win, if they beat Kansas State, Baylor, and Kansas. And we're going to rank them because, 1, they're 5-0 in the Big 12. But number 2, because they're heading to Oklahoma to go play a ranked opponent. Let's get a top 25 versus a top 25 matchup. I could definitely see that storyline coming. And UCF might be heading for a nice bowl game. All they need is 3 more wins, and they're bowl eligible for their first year in the Big 12, which is a pretty impressive feat.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, they snuck into the rankings last year with wins over Cincinnati and Tulane, which they then proceeded to waste immediately. But that's no big deal.
Well,
also,
we did say at the beginning of the season we're projecting them to be about 500. That 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 record. If they continue on this pace, we might be looking at an 8-9 win season for UCF, which would be pretty huge, don't you think?
Yeah, for their first season in the Big 12, especially because no offense, I think UT and OU are gonna get walked in their first couple of years in the SEC. Personally. Who knows? They might not, what do I know? But
if you had told me at the beginning of the season that would happen, I'd agree. But beating Alabama is still a big feat for them. Obviously, I don't think that they're on the level of Georgia, but I think they can handle themselves, especially with the way that I've seen them been playing. I think that they can handle themselves in the SEC. Maybe they're not going to be, front runners for the SEC championship, but I think they're an 8-9 win season for their first SEC championship. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves on that one. Anything else you want to talk about with college football or with UCF?
Real quick, as a UCF fan, Tennessee is getting the nice the Heupel experience, which is when all of the previous coaches' recruits start phasing out and they start going with his recruits, and now they're not as good anymore. Like, he can do really well with other people's recruits, but he can't recruit very well. So now Tennessee's putting up 11 points and losing.
Hey, but their quarterback can throw 85 yards. That's what we keep hearing. Real quick, I know this is out of the Big 12 for now. They will be in the Big 12 next year. Colorado almost losing to Colorado State, going to double overtime. The game went until 2 a.m. Central Standard Time. It was, I had to see the end of the game. Obviously, there was a lot of news with some hits and some back and forth with people. And apparently there's a lot of stuff even after the game, death threats being sent. And obviously that's too far. No one should be sending any death threats to anyone ever, especially not over a college football game. I think that's a little ridiculous. But looking at the game, we came into it with thinking Colorado was going to breeze right through this. I think they were like the 14 or 21 point favorite. It was like something in the 20s point favorite. We get to about the start of the fourth quarter, and Colorado State starts to take advantage, and they're like, with 3 minutes left, a 96% chance to win. At one point, even being 99% chance to win, which is kind of funny. And then Colorado just comes back and is able to score incredibly fast, by the way. Scoring, how many points is that? That is 7. That is 13 points in the fourth quarter. 14, excuse me. They went for 2 on one of them. And able to tie the game up. I mean, it was a good game for Colorado, but if I'm looking at it from an outside perspective, that's a disappointing game for all the hype that Colorado was going into. They have to go now to Oregon, number 10, and then at home versus number 5, USC. If I'm Deion Sanders, and I love Deion Sanders, I love what he's doing with these kids and the culture he's building there, but I'm a lot more nervous about these upcoming games for Colorado, especially with the way they struggled against Colorado State. Did you stay up to watch the Colorado State game?
Yeah, I mean, I was at a birthday party and it was on in the background, and I was once again drinking. We're gonna ignore that part. But the the real thing is that part of it though is Colorado State was saying for like the whole week ahead of time, they were talking shit, and they came to back up their shit, and so I don't know how much of it is I'm concerned about Colorado as much as it is hats off to Colorado State. They said they stuck it to their rivals. They said, we don't think you guys are legit, and they came to prove it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what it was. But Colorado, I don't know how to really quantify Colorado, because when they were going into the beginning of the season, they were massive underdogs versus TCU, and then they ended up winning that game. Like huge underdogs. So I think I can't really say like what my expectations are from them, because it's kind of hard to tell how they're actually going to fare, because they kind of came out of the gate swinging when nobody expected them to. So nobody expected them to be as good as they are right now. So it's hard for me to say like, oh, well, they should have definitely been better than Colorado State.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you make some good points. Obviously, they are at their projected win total for the entire year in week 3. But looking at their next couple games at Oregon, they're listed at a 6.1% chance to win. And then at home versus UCS, they're listed at a 9.1% chance to win. Obviously, major underdogs in those games. One thing that kind of stuck out to me was Colorado fans storming the field. I mean, I get it. No one you didn't win this many games last year. It's an exciting atmosphere and everything. But really, storming the field in a double overtime when you were the favorites against Colorado State, I don't know. Just seems a little weird. It felt like it'd be like if Texas fans stormed the field versus Wyoming. I guess it's not the same rivalry, but it just felt like, why are you storming the field? I feel like this is a time to go back to the locker room, watch some film, and improve for the next matchup rather than let's celebrate tonight. Might just be me.
I think it's just because Colorado's been like a 1-win team kind of thing for the past couple years, and that is the big rivalry. A rivalry that, like, for the past couple weeks, like I said, there was a lot of trash talk, and kind of a nasty game. You had the hit on Travis Hunter, and then obviously, like you said, the kid who hit Travis Hunter and took him out for the next couple weeks. That kid's getting death threats now. You said there's just a lot of tension and animosity. So that's one of those things where it's like, I think that's just one of those games where when they've been talking that much trash the whole week, and then they lose, you gotta let them know it.
Yeah. And it wasn't even just Colorado State. I mean, Colorado Sanders was, poking people's eyes, or a lineman on one of the plays. So there was definitely some tension between the two. And obviously, if they beat USC at home, storm the field. You have so much fun that night. I'm not saying don't storm the field. I just thought it was a little weird when you were such a massive favorite in that game, and it took you to double overtime. It just felt off. I get it. It's a big rivalry, but just me personally, it felt off. But do what you want. It's your school. Y'all have fun. You're 3-0. Congratulations. Go beat Oregon. Go prove to college football, the NCAA, that you are a legit team and that you deserve to be in the top 15. Because I think if they beat Oregon, they should be like ranked 15, maybe ranked 10. Obviously depends on where what people play and how they perform. But they got a lot of good matchups. They got Oregon at 10, USC at 5, UCLA at 22, Oregon State at 14, Washington State at 21, and Utah at 11. And then they have their conference championship game, which is the RIP 12, because this is the last season of the Pac-12. So we could be looking at a Colorado playoff team. We could be looking at a top 10 Colorado team. Who knows? It's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the last bit, the great bit of Dallas sports. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Aaron Rodgers-less Jets 30-10. Who would have thought? Who could have thought we would have won this game? Crazy, crazy defense. Obviously not as great as they did against the Giants, but the Cowboys are 70-10 in terms of scoring and points given up within their first 2 games. That is an amazing accomplishment. I know people are going to say, oh, it's the Jets. Oh, it's the Giants. The Giants beat the Vikings last year in the playoffs. And I would argue the Giants got better in the offseason with the addition of Darren Waller. The Jets are Aaron Rodgers-less, but that defense was still good, and CeeDee Lamb was dicing them up, had over 100 reception yards in the first half, cooled off later on. I think he, felt bad for the defense and was like, hey, I'll let them have this one. And some drama going on after the game with Breece Hall and Sauce Gardner. But this game looked, out of hand by the time we got to the half. I know it was only 18-10, but coming out of that halftime, it felt like, wow, this is over. GG. Go to the next match.
Yeah. Sauce Gardner got mad but hurt on Twitter.
And it didn't even it didn't make sense why he was getting mad. I mean, I get he was talking mad smack, but CeeDee Lamb torched the entire Jets secondary. I get it's my personal stats, blah blah blah. He only did this against me, but if you think about it, it's a team sport. Your team gave up 143 yards to CeeDee Lamb. You're part of that team. You failed.
Mm-hmm. And and then he deactivated his Twitter and everything like that. It's like he obviously knows that he didn't give up all of CD's yards. Like he personally didn't give up all of them. Because there was a play that Sauce almost pick sixed it, and that was intended for CD. So couldn't have given up all of CD.
As my friend likes to say, this broadcast was sponsored by Snickers, not Butterfingers.
But the thing is, it's kind of exactly what I said last week. As I said, I think that the Cowboys offense and Dak Prescott are going to play a lot better against this Jets defense than Josh Allen did. And that's not me saying that I think Dak is a better quarterback than Josh Allen or anything like that. Opinions on that aside, I like both quarterbacks a fair amount. But
I think if you asked every Dallas fan would they rather have, if they could trade a 1-for-1 trade, Josh Allen or Dak Prescott, I think I would assume at least 60% would say I'm taking Josh Allen.
Oh, well, and the thing is, I love both quarterbacks. I love Dak Prescott and I love Josh Allen. Both great quarterbacks. But Josh Allen, like I said last week, plays hero ball. He knows he's their best player on that team. So he just runs around. He makes big throws that he shouldn't and all that kind of stuff. They put the ball in his hands and say, make something happen a lot of times. And it all runs through him. But I think that Dak Prescott, I know the interception thing last year, ignore last year. Dak Prescott has one of the lowest career interception ratings, top 10 lowest interception ratings of all time. So I think it was safe to say that he was going to play pretty conservative against the Jets defense, and that it was going to be a very ground and pound, slice and dice kind of thing. And that's exactly what happened. Is they kind of just marched down the field with ease against the Jets. My real concern is that the offense stalled in the red zone so many times.
Yes.
Is they would get all the way down there and then sputter out and have to kick a field goal. Really, if we're thinking if they could have converted those red zone offense moments, that score should have been 50-10. We should have scored way more on them.
Well, in the second half, we only kicked field goals. We had 4 straight field goals.
Which, by the way, you know how I said something about the kicker last week? I take it all back. Shout out Brandon Aubrey.
Brandon
You know,
Aubrey, they found the solution for the Dallas kicking curse. Can we just give a round of applause for Jerry Jones figuring out why we can't kick the football through the uprights? And his name is Brandon Aubrey.
and in the weirdest fucking way too. That guy never kicked in like college, and that dude is a soccer player. Like he's literally a soccer player. That like one day his wife was like, "Hey, I think you could kick for the NFL," and then he did, and now
Hey,
he's
if
our
it works, it
kicker.
works.
uh, but yeah, that also, and then obviously the defense is awesome. I know it's the Giants and it's the Jets without Aaron Rodgers, but like that defense is like ferocious. That's really what it is, and they've gotten more so each year. Is they're a very physical defense, like in the way that like the past couple of years as they've been is I've seen they were kind of like a flashy defense, and they would make like these big like picks and all that sort of stuff. They led the league in takeaways like 2 years in a row. They were very
Mm.
flashy and they were very like athletic and all that sort of stuff. But I think the thing that I noticed like this year so far is that they're physical and they're aggressive and they are just ferocious. As they are just bulldozing through people and they're coming and taking. You
I
know.
mean, Micah Parsons is looking unstoppable. He is looking like a monster. He had 4 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackle for losses, 4 quarterback hits. He was everywhere on the field. I mean, Stephon Gilmore is looking like prime Patriots. Stephon Gilmore obviously didn't get any picks or anything like that. I don't believe he didn't get the picks. Yeah, so Malik Hooker, Trevon Diggs, and Curse got the interceptions. Got 3, by the way. One of them I thought was going to be a return touchdown, which I was worried about because I was playing the Dallas defense in fantasy. I saw the first interception. I was like, cool, sweet, we won the game. That's pretty much the end of the game. I saw the second one, and I was like, oh god, don't score that many points. And then the third one, I was like, oh no, this is going to be the Giants all over again. They're going to score 35 points.
They
Um,
almost got a fumble one too.
yeah, I mean, this defense is unbelievable. I know we talk about it a lot, and I know we're based Dallas fans are biased. But like this team, the only other team that I see, and it's unfortunate that this has to be the team, but the only other team that I see able to compete with this Cowboys team is the 49ers. And it happens to be the 49ers are the Dallas Kryptonite. Obviously, they have Christian McCaffrey. They have Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. Shout out Iowa State. They've got Debo Samuel. They got Brandon Ayuk. They got George Kittle. And then they have an amazing defense as well, led by Nick Bosa. So that team has looked unstoppable. The Cowboys have looked unstoppable. My prediction right now, we're going to see the Dallas Cowboys versus the 49ers in the NFC Championship. And whoever wins that game is winning the Super Bowl. I don't care if Patrick Mahomes is on the other side. I don't care who's on the other side of that NFC Championship game. One of those two teams is winning that Super Bowl. And it's going to be the Dallas Cowboys.
I think it's those defenses, man. It's the defense that I think is going to make or break it all. And as I know that I hate Philly, but the Philadelphia Eagles this year look they look pretty invincible so far.
I mean, they almost lost to the Vikings.
They almost lost to the Patriots too. And here's the thing: is I know that like Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins are better quarterbacks than Zach Vick, because that dude was running all over us at the end of the first half.
Zach
I know that
Vick.
I know they're better than Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. But if
I
I'm
wouldn't.
an Eagles fan,
I would put Daniel Jones over Mac Jones.
I don't
I
know
don't have that
yet.
much faith in Mac Jones.
It's hard to tell because like last year their offensive coordinator was awful for the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
So my verdict's kind of out on Mac for me. But if I'm the Eagles, I'm a little concerned that your secondary gave up 300 passing yards 2 weeks in a row to Mac Jones, and Kirk Cousins is good, but like to Mac
Which, by
Jones
the
and Kirk
way,
Cousins.
Kirk Cousins is having a, you know, I like historic season in terms of his stat line, and he's 0-2. Him and Justin
I know.
Jefferson are on another level, and they are 0 for 2. It doesn't make any sense. This doesn't. I mean, it makes sense for Kirk Cousins. This seems like a very Kirk Cousins thing to do. Seems like a very Vikings thing to do almost. But it's mind-boggling thinking, like looking at his stats and being like, this dude has lost both games.
I know. I feel so bad for it, especially after that first season at quarterback. You got to be like, this dude's really likable, and he's kind of one of those dudes that you just want to see win. So it's like, man, he is playing his heart out and losing. That's a bummer, man.
And they traded for Cam Akers today. Obviously,
I did see
Alexander
that.
Madison fantasy owners are going to be upset, and I even think Cam Akers fantasy owners are going to be upset. I think that's going to be a very committee running back. But they're adding
There's
more
Alexander
offensive.
Madison owners.
What?
There's Alexander Madison owners.
I mean, he was a top 5 round running back because there was the assumption that like he was good last year when Dalvin Cook went down. He might be good again. But I mean, they're adding more weapons to the offense. I'm surprised they're not adding more weapons to the defense. Like, it doesn't seem like the offense is the problem. The offense is performing great.
Yeah. I said, and actually, the real thing with the Vikings has been that they cannot stop turning the ball over. They just keep fumbling the ball. Justin Jefferson fumbled the ball out of the end zone. Oh, they lose it. It should have been they really close to a touchdown, but he fumbled a touchdown away, and now the Eagles have the ball. You know.
You say the turnovers. Like I said, it's not Kirk Cousins. He has 1 interception.
Yeah, it's not Kirk Cousins. Yeah, and that was like an end of the half kind of thing. It is like, yeah, it's not Kirk Cousins. It's just that the team keeps fumbling. The team keeps making mistake after mistake after mistake. Where it's like, if they could clean up these mistakes, they would be blowing teams out. But it's just they're making a lot of mistakes. They're playing bad football. Kirk Cousins isn't, and just Justin Jefferson isn't. Although Justin Jefferson is responsible for one of those fumbles. They're not the ones playing bad football. It's just that team is just playing bad ball, man.
Just so everyone understands their stat line, Kirk Cousins is averaging 350 yards a game, averaging 8 yards a play, a passing play, has a 72.7% completion rating. Justin Jefferson is averaging 154 yards a game. He's, I believe, averaging a touch. No, he doesn't have a touchdown yet, but he's averaging 15.4 yards per play. He has 309 yards in total. I mean, what more can you ask for? Jordan Addison as well, by the way, is averaging 19 yards a play and has 2 touchdowns. TJ Hawkinson has 2 touchdowns. This team could have been on par, I think, with the Cowboys and with the 49ers in what we're speculating. But they almost feel like an older Cowboy team, when Dak was first starting and he was lighting it up and Zeke was this, being a star running back. They just have too many mistakes. They really got to get that discipline down and stop turning the ball over.
And this might be the last year of Kirk Cousins in Minnesota because they seem to be intent on they want a younger team, and they understand that like they're probably not Super Bowl contenders this year. So I think that they might be moving on from Kirk after this year, which would be rather unfortunate if he continues to ball out like this.
Hey, who knows? Maybe the Cowboys sign him. Who knows? Maybe we're done with Dak. But circling back to the Eagles, I know we talked about the Eagles defense giving up a lot of points, but I mean they have the injury bug out of any team. I mean, Nakobe Dean is, I think, out for the season. He's on IR. I don't know if he's coming back. Zach McPherson, who's their cornerback, he's on the IR. Sean Bradley has out for the season. I believe Achilles as well. But they're having injuries left and right. Avonte Maddox, another cornerback. They have 2 of their corners are on the IR, which is never good for what we thought would be a top defensive team. But they got some tough competition coming up in the season, going to Baker Mayfield's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who would have thought they're 2-0, by the way? And then having to play the Rams, having to play the Cowboys. Obviously, this is way down the line. Then the Chiefs. And listen to this lineup. They have to play the Cowboys, then the Chiefs, then the Bills, then the 49ers, and the Cowboys, then the Seahawks. That is a tough stretch for any team, especially those 2 Cowboy games, because Dak doesn't lose to the Eagles.
Yeah, and well, and it was really fun because we were clowning them for how easy their schedule was last year, and it was. But
It was a
still,
second
now
place. It
they,
was a second place schedule. That's how the NFL works.
yeah, yeah. Now they get the hard schedule. And we got an easier schedule than them, but we still play a lot of the same teams.
Yeah, it's definitely
Um,
easier, but it's still a difficult schedule. Obviously 49ers, Chargers, Rams, Seahawks, Bills, Lions even, I think are all, I mean the Dolphins could be a trap game as well.
yeah, and the Lions are also getting hit with the injury bug. C.J. Gardner Johnson might be out for the season.
Mhm.
James Houston is probably out. Their
David
defense just took
Montgomery,
some
we
pretty
don't
big
know if he's
hits.
going to be playing.
Oh yeah, David Montgomery. Yeah, they are getting hit with the injury bug pretty bad there too. And unfortunately, Jared Goff's interception free streak unfortunately had to come to an end.
Sadly,
Uh,
it did.
at 383 passes without an interception, which is bonkers. This is the third longest streak in NFL history. Especially because like everybody likes to clown Jared Goff or like this guy sucks, but like that dude's been playing bonkers. Like I don't know, like this last season and so far this season, he's been pretty good. So
Yeah, change of environment, who knows. Going on to week 3 of the NFL, the Cowboys are going to Arizona. They have an 88.1% chance, knock on wood. Arizona's trying to lose games. Like it seems that, they were beating the Giants 28
beating
to
the hell out
14.
of the Giants.
They were winning 20-0, and then Roger Goodell called them and said, "Hey, you need to lose this game, Arizona Cardinals." And all of a sudden, hey, they're still looking at the first pick, or for number 1 overall pick, who doesn't want to play for them. So I don't know why
Yeah,
I don't get the strategy.
and also like I don't understand that you've wrapped up too much money in Kyler. You can't trade him. It's Kyler. Like if they had Kyler Murray, they would probably be winning games right now. It's
Oh, they definitely would have
it's
beat the Giants.
they would have beat the Giants, and they probably would have beaten the Commanders too. It is interesting that they're putting up a fight, but yeah, it's like the owner marched downstairs and I said, "I said we're taking for Caleb Williams," but they they yeah, if they had Kyler, they would be winning some games right now. So I can't quite comprehend. I know Caleb Williams is like a generational prospect, but if this dude is just gonna play another year of college, which he probably will because he's not gonna like whoever the number 1 pick has. I can't justify tanking for him when you
Yeah.
have Kyler Murray still on your roster.
And if I was the Giants, I understand Daniel Jones. They just paid him a bunch of money. Um, but that seems like a perfect squad for Caleb Williams to come in. Maybe you can trade Daniel Jones to someone else. I don't know who's going to take that contract. Um, but I don't get it by the Giants either. You're not really competing this year. You have Philadelphia, you have Dallas, you even have the Commanders who are 2-0, barring a blatantly missed pass interference call, by the way. Um,
Truth.
and also just giving up a Hail Mary. Like, what is happening? Um, but for the Cowboys versus Cardinals game, Cowboys obviously highly, highly favored. I said it in the preseason. We're the Legion of Boom 2.0, and who is the Legion of Boom 2.0's kryptonite? It's not the team, the field at Arizona. That field has ruined the career of the Legion of Boom. Not ruined, but ended the Legion of Boom careers. If we see an injury, don't say I called it. Don't say I put bad juju on it. Don't say I predicted any injuries, because obviously I don't want any Cowboy to get injured. I don't want any player to get injured in general. But if we see some kind of freak incident, freak injury happen, and it's on Arizona, I'm gonna come back and say I told you so. I told you this field is cursed, and we should put a rule that we never play in this field again.
No, I think you are putting bad juju out there. That's like you're ugh. don't make me come and find you. I know where you live.
We'll find out on Sunday, I guess.
But also speaking of that, prayers up to Nick Chubb, man. That's one of the oof.
That was a rough injury. I mean, tore 3 different parts, 3 different ligaments, I believe. That's, one of those tears is a hard injury to come back from. Who knows if he even comes back and plays again.
That's like a that's like a will affect you for the rest of your life kind of injury. There's
Oh
like,
yeah.
there's like scary injuries, and then there's like injuries that'll make you like kind of throw up when you see them. Like scary injuries, like the Damar Hamlin thing, or like Tua like having a spasm when he got concussed last year. And then there's like the gnarly injuries, and that's what that was, man. Like the gasp that went up from the crowd when they saw it was like, did you see
Just
that video?
Yes, I did. Just for context, we almost saw Tua Tagovailoa die on that football field on national television. They wouldn't even show Nick Chubb's injury on national television. That's how bad it was. That it was such a disturbing video. I hate anytime I'm scrolling on social media and I see it because it is one of the worst injuries I've ever seen. Especially when they watch it in slow mo. We don't need to see it in slow mo, please.
It's friggin' gnarly, man. It's
And we hope that he comes back healthy and is able to play again. Obviously, he won't be playing this season. And that's two. I mean, we've seen a lot of injured running backs in the past couple weeks. Obviously, we have Jonathan Taylor being on the PUP list. Now Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones being out. I think there's a couple others that are injured or questionable. And man, these running backs are taking a lot of wear and tear on their body. It'll be interesting to see how this affects Tony Pollard's contract when he comes up. Maybe the Cowboys look at him as like a liability risk. There are some good running backs in the draft. Obviously, not to the caliber of Texas legend Bijan Robinson, but who knows? Who knows what we do this offseason? Obviously, we're focused on this season, not the offseason. And we have the Cowboys versus Cardinals game this Sunday. I'm going to predict a score I'm going to go with 38-14. I think they get a couple points. I think Zach Ertz is gonna score a couple points. It seems like we don't do good against tight ends. Or Marquise Brown's gonna have some freak like 40-yard touchdown pass or catch. But yeah, that's the score prediction I'm gonna go with. I was almost close on last week's. Do you have a score prediction for this week's?
Mm, I I think it's gonna be another blowout. Um no offense, I don't think Josh Dobbs is gonna be able to do much against our defense. I think we're looking more at like a 35-3 kind of win. I don't think that they're gonna put up more than the Jets or the Giants. I mean, well, I think if they get three, they'll put up more than the Giants. But if they put up anything, they'll get more than the Giants. But I don't perceive them doing really much of anything with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. And that's not even like a slight on Josh Dobbs. That's like he's fine. He played well and for that like game with Tennessee last year. He low key sliced us up when he played for Tennessee last year. I don't know what that was about, but I just don't think that they're going to have the same kind of level of. I don't think they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean we'll find
And
out.
the offense.
Oh, go ahead.
I was like, and the offense is still looking good. Like Dak looked pretty sharp last week. He had like 80% of his passes
Besides
completed.
that one almost pick six.
Yeah, so that had me tweaking. But Dak looked good. They actually said going into his next week is his 100th game.
Wow.
And they said that this stat is probably going to fall by the end of the season, by the way. But he'll be the first player in NFL history to have 150 passing touchdowns and 25 rushing touchdowns in his first 100 games.
Well, I mean, now that you said it, it's not going to happen.
No. He already has it.
Okay.
But I'm saying that stat is probably going to fall by the end of the season because Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are both creeping up on those marks as well, and they're in their like 80th games. But still, as of right now, he's the first player to do that. So,
Yeah.
how about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys? And like we said last week, Cowboys going to the Super Bowl. We'll find out this Sunday versus the Cardinals.
I know this isn't. No, that not that many people care. Our WNBA team just won their first playoff series since they relocated to Dallas. Shout out Dallas Wings.
Congrats, Dallas Wings.
I can't tell you much about them, unfortunately, but shout out to the Dallas Wings.
Yeah, no problem. Congrats to the Dallas Wings for winning your first playoff series. Was it series or game?
It's a series. It's only 3-game series, though.
Oh, all right. So, good luck on the next series, and hopefully you can win a championship this year. Win on your first one. But like I was saying, my name is Tex. This is James. This is the Ranch Dallas Sport Podcast. We'll see you next week. If you're watching on Spotify, hit the rating button down below. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and let us know down below what you want us to talk about next week.